Hey guys, so today we've got my second NFL mock draft, and this will be my second last. The NFL draft is on April 29th, so I'm going to be mocking the first round of this draft. And we've got a few big trades in free agency. The Niners now trading up for the third pick. The Dolphins trade down but traded back up for the sixth, and the Eagles are now selecting 12th. So some interesting moves, and this is definitely going to be a lot different than the previous mock draft. But we're just going to start off here at pick number 1 with the Jags, and they're going to be taking Trevor Lawrence. Very easy pick here. He's obviously the best player in this class. He's a generational talent, and a lot of people are comparing him as Justin Herbert plus, which I think is a very fair comparison. And I think he has potential to be a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. Now moving on to the Jets selection at number 2, I'm going to have them taking Zach Wilson. I think there's probably like an 80 to 90% chance to take Wilson here. I think he is clearly the second best QB in this class, and the Jets experiment with Sam Darnold, who was picked 3rd overall 2 years ago, clearly has failed. I think it's time to move on to a new QB. The only other player I think they would consider picking is Kyle Pitts, but I think at this stage, it's better to just start over and get that franchise elite QB in Zach Wilson. Now, I think at 3 is where the draft starts getting interesting, with the Niners now selecting at 3rd, and as you can see, their number 1 need is QB, and I don't know why they would trade up to number 3 if not to take a QB, so I'm going to have them taking Trey Lance here, and they have Mac Jones actually here at 3rd, but I think he's the most overrated player in this class. There's no way that he is better than both Trey Lance and Justin Fields. I think it is more likely that they take Trey Lance. They could also take Fields, but they did miss their pro day, so I think it is a lot more likely that the Niners take Trey Lance with all his potential, and I think he fits really well into the 49ers system, as they've got George Kittle at tight end. He's got 2 really good weapons at wide receiver, like Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, as well as Trent Williams, who is one of the best tackles, if not the best tackle in the league right now. And Trey Lance is going to move the ball, run the ball around. He's an elite playmaker who can run around the field, kind of like a Lamar, very athletic, so I think he'll fit really well as the new franchise quarterback for the Niners. Now moving on to number 4, we have the Falcons, and I think they're going to go one of 2 ways here. They can either select Justin Fields here at number 4 to replace Matt Ryan in a year or 2, or they can go with Kyle Pitts, and I'm actually going to have them taking Kyle Pitts here. He had an excellent pro day. I think he ran like 4.4, and he's such an athletic receiver, very dynamic, versatile player, very dynamic weapon for the Falcons to take here, and he's basically a receiver playing tight end in a tight end body, which is absolutely incredible, and I think he has the potential to be up there with guys like George Kittle and Travis Kelce as a top 3 tight end, so I think he's a can't-miss prospect here with Falcons, and they'll address the quarterback issue and find a guy to replace Matt Ryan later on, because right now you might as well give him weapons with an excellent 1-2 punch in Julio Jones and Kyle Pitts. Now let's move on to the Bengals at number 5, and I'm going to have them taking Penei Sewell. I think they need to take a tackle, especially if Pitts is gone. The only other guy I think they would consider other than taking Sewell or Slater at tackle is Pitts, but with him going at 4, I think they have to take Sewell. Apparently, the Bengals are the only team considering taking him in the top 10, but I think they can't miss on Sewell and his potential, and they'll be able to develop him into the main bodyguard and protector of Joe Burrow, as it should be the number 1 priority right now, especially since they didn't address it in free agency. They need to get a tackle to help protect Joe Burrow. And I think Sewell will fit that, and I think he has all-pro potential at the tackle position. Let's move on to the Dolphins. Here's who they got from the Eagles, and I'm going to have them taking Jamar Chase. I think that they could go Kyle Pitts if he's available, but they might as well just take Chase. I had them taking 3rd overall in my last mock draft, so I think it's really just a genius series of moves, moving back to 12, but then trading back up and getting the same guy that they would have done at 3 here in Jamar Chase. They get an elite playmaker who I think is the best receiver in this class. They play with Devontae Parker. We give Tua a weapon here, so I think this is a very easy pick for them to make. Now, moving on to the Lions pick at number 7, I'm going to have them taking Jalen Waddle. at receiver. They need receivers, and they could maybe go with Fields here to help replace Goff, as Goff is just not good. But I think they're starting over here. They need to get an elite playmaker in Waddle, and he's a great player. I think he has global potential at the receiver position for the Lions, and he was actually really good. He was probably the best receiver on Alabama before he got injured, and Devontae Smith started his Heisman season run. So I think that he is wide receiver 2 in this class. Again, they could take Devontae Smith here, but I think Jalen Waddle is the second best, and he's just a really, really good deep threat playmaker for the Lions. Next up here at number 8, I have the Panthers taking Justin Fields. I don't see why they would take Mac Jones, as Fields is clearly the better player, and now if Fields does go to the Falcons, I think they could consider taking someone else, such as Rashawn Slater, but they've got to go Fields here if he is available, as Teddy Bridgewater is just not the guy. He's a good bridge player, but I think that Fields can play behind him, learn behind Bridgewater for a year before they decide to trade Bridgewater, and Fields can take over as their starting QB in Carolina. He's got the best running back in the league in Christian McCaffrey. He can also play receiver. 2 really good receivers in DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. So I think the Panthers can go back to being a really good team again with Fields at quarterback. The next up at number 9, I have the Broncos, and even though I think this is a reach, they are going to be taking Mac Jones. Quarterback is their number 1 need, and even though Mac Jones is, I think in my opinion, a late first round talent, I don't see how they would pass up on him. I think it's either that or they take Rashawn Slater if they don't really need anything else. I think they could take Patrick Surtain, but they did address cornerback in free agency, so I think it's much more likely that they go with a quarterback, as Drew Lock is just not that good. And I think Mac Jones can be a much, much better player. I don't think he is as good right off the bat. But anyways, I think Mac Jones is at best just an average starter, but that is still better than Drew Lock, so they're going to be taking him out of Alabama here at number 9. And at 10, I have the Cowboys taking Patrick Surtain. The number 1 need, as you just saw, was cornerback, so if Surtain is available, I think they will definitely take him here. So that was an easy pick. The next up, we have my New York Giants, and I'm going to have them taking Rashawn Slater. So for some reason, they have offensive tackles like their 8th most need to right up their quarterback. But I don't think that, like, there's no edge rusher. This is too early to take Jalen Phillips. Kyle Pitts is gone here, so they're going to be taking Rashawn Slater. I'd be very happy with this pick. He's the most technically gifted tackle in this class, and he is better day one than Penei Sewell right now, so I think he can be really good for the Giants. Playing him with Andrew Thomas. Nate Soldier is gone, so I think playing him with Andrew Thomas, the 2 tackle positions, will help Daniel Jones a lot. And next up, we have the Eagles after they traded down, so I'm going to have them taking Devontae Smith. He's the best player available. They desperately need an elite playmaker, which is what Devontae Smith brings. And even though he needs to bulk up a little bit, I think he can still be an elite receiver, especially with the Eagles, who are now handing the QB position over to Jalen Hurts. I think you got to equip them with some really good playmakers, and right now the receiver is just not that good. Jalen Reagor, we'll see how he does. I think he can still be a solid receiver, but I don't see him as a number 1 receiver, which I think Devontae Smith can be after his Heisman season. And moving on to number 13, we have the Chargers, and I'm going to have them taking Christian Darrisaw. He's the 3rd best tackle in this class, and he's a very good one. I think the Chargers should add more to protect Justin Herbert. They brought in Corey Linsley, so I think adding Darrisaw as their number 1 tackle will help them a lot. And next up here, we have the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm going to have them taking Elijah Vera Tucker. He's a top guard in this class, and he's listed as an inside offensive lineman, but he can also play tackle as well, so you got good flexibility with him there in Minnesota, so I think they will definitely want to take him if he's available. Now next up at number 15, we have the New England Patriots, and I'm going to have them taking Micah Parsons. Now he has dropped a bit because of some other issues, but I think he is still a really good player who the Patriots will want to take here. He's a great linebacker, he's a very good off the ball defender, and he can also play safety for them, so it will be interesting to see where he fits in on that team. But after their big free agent signings, I think they're going to want to go with the Penn State product here. And moving on to number 16, we have the Arizona Cardinals, and I think they're going to be taking Caleb Farley. Now, he has dropped because of his injury, and he has a history of injuries. Otherwise, he will be the top cornerback going to Broncos. That's where he went in my last mock draft, but I think he falls a little bit, but not too much here. So he's going to go to the Cardinals. I think they're a team that needs cornerback, and Caleb Farley brings a lot of potential. And if the injuries can't get ahead of him, I think he can be a very good value pick here at number 16. Next up at 17, we have the the Las Vegas Raiders, and they're going to be taking Kevin Jenkins, and their number one need is tackle. They lost Richie Incognito, and they lost some really good tackles. Forget who the other guy was, Rodney Hudson. So Rodney Hudson, Richie Incognito, a lot of other tackles that they've released. They just had a bad offseason, but I think they can redeem themselves. Now, this is a bit of a reach. Jenkins is listed at 19, but I think he should probably go a bit lower, but they have to take a tackle here in the draft, especially releasing all these guys and not addressing it in free agency. So they've got to take Kevin Jenkins here, and I think he can be a very good tackle for them. Next up at 18, we have the Miami Dolphins, the second pick of the draft, and they're going to be taking Jalen Phillips, the edge out of Miami. So their number one need, aside from wide receiver, as you can see, is an edge. Jalen Phillips played for Miami, which makes this all the better. So I think this is a really good match here. The Dolphins need an edge rusher. Jalen Phillips is top edge rusher in the class. Next up at number 19, we have Washington football team, and their number one need is tackle. So I'm going to give them a tackle here. I can't find him right now, but it's going to be Jalen Mayfield here. He's ranked number 53, but I think he will be a first-round pick. He's, in my opinion, the next best tackle available. They need a tackle really badly, and they've got Fitzmagic now at QB, so I think they're going to focus on tackle, and I think this is favorite to win their division here over the Giants, Cowboys, and Eagles, so I think they're going to help their team, and I think they can do really well adding some extra protection to the offensive line. Now, next up at number 20, we have the Bears, and they're going to be taking Rashad Bateman. Their number 3 need is wide receiver. They're not going to be taking a quarterback here, and I think it's too much to reach for a tackle, so they're going to be taking Rashad Bateman. They're going to give a big playmaker here to Andy Dalton, and I think the best you can do for helping a quarterback. They were disappointing in free agency, but you got to give them some weapons there. And they brought back Allen Robinson on the tag, so we don't know if it's going to come back next year or for the 2022 season. But I think we can bring in Bateman, who's a very good wide receiver, and I think he'll help this team a lot. Now we have the Colts, and they just acquired Carson Wentz, but I'm going to give them a cornerback, the number 2 need. And so there we go, J.C. Horn. He's ranked number 14. I think this is a very good value pick for a position of need for the Colts. Now we have the Titans, who struggled defensively in the playoffs, and they picked the biggest bust of the draft in Isaiah Wilson, who they just traded to the Dolphins for a 7th rounder. He only played like 4 snaps there. I don't even know if he played at all for the Titans. So I'm going to be giving the Titans Trevon Mayrig here is safety, and safety is not their number 1 need, it's their number 4 need, but I think he could probably even put cornerback to their number 1 need, adding help to their secondary. Very good defensive back there out of TCU, and that will help their defense a lot. Next up at 23, we have the Jets' next pick, which we got from the Jamal Adams trade from the Seahawks, and I'm going to have them taking Kwity Paye here. He's an edge rusher, it's their number 3 need, and they actually have Azeez Ojulari ranked ahead of him, but I still think that Kwity Paye is slightly better coming out of Michigan. I think this can be a really good pick here for the Jets, as they need an edge rusher. They just need to get better all around. They've got their franchise quarterback in Zach Wilson, so now they're going to address the defense. Next up here, we have the Steelers, and bringing back Juju. The TikTok boys are staying together, so I think they're going to be adding help on the offensive line to protect Big Ben. Is he even here? Yeah, Sam Cosmi. So I think he's a first-round tackle. A lot of teams, you can see, tackle is the number 1 and 2 need here. So I think that the Steelers are going to take Cosme at 24. They should be really happy with this check Big Ben. Now, they could take a running back, but I think their top priority right now should be protecting Big Ben as he gets older, and this is probably going to be his last year, so they get a really good tackle. Next up, we have the Jags, and I think this is where this is going to happen, so we're going to take him. We're going to be taking Gregory Rousseau, strength 51, but he's very good at edge rusher, and he is very raw. He has some issues, but I think the Jaguars, they're a rebuilding team. They've got their generational franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. So, like the Jets, they're going to try to move to the defensive side of the ball. Got a ton of sacks. There are a lot of things he needs to work on, though. Very raw, but I think the Jaguars will be able to develop him as much as possible. As they are a rebuilding team, so they're going to focus on their young prospects. And Rousseau can be a force on the defensive line for them. Now we have the Browns, and I'm going to have them taking Azeez Ojulari, another edge rusher. Edge is their biggest need. We're seeing a lot of edge rushers and tackles here going, and teams need a lot of them. So I think Ojulari is the next best tackle or edge rusher, and the Browns are a very good team all around, and I think that adding Ojulari will fill in one of the big gaps they do have, and I think Ojulari and Myles Garrett can be very, very good and very threatening on the edge there for the Browns. Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm going to have them taking the next best receiver here in Terrence Marshall Jr. out of LSU. They come with Jamar Chase, and he is a very good wide receiver. The Ravens do need a receiver. I don't think a lot of receivers will want to play there, since basically it's just Lamar running the ball, and they get maybe one or two actual targets in the game while they're blocking most of the time. So they've got to draft him here in the first round. Terrence Marshall is a very good player, and I think this is about where he should go. In the late first round, early second round. So I think this can be a great pick for the Ravens, and him and Hollywood Brown can be a solid young tandem. They're kind of similar to the Niners, having Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk with a very athletic quarterback in Trey Lance. So I think this can be really good for the Ravens. Next up, we have the Saints, and they don't have Drew Brees anymore. They're going to have Jameis and Taysom Hill battling it out for quarterback. But I'm going to have them taking Greg and Newsom the second. Quarterback's their biggest need. Newsom's the next best one available. They're not going to dress QB here. Maybe they can take Trask or Kellen Mond in the second round, but I think they've got to take cornerback here. Next up, we have the Packers, and no, they're not going to take a wide receiver. I don't think they're ever going to take a wide receiver with this pick. So Kadarius Toney is not going to the Packers, but I'm going to have them taking Zaven Collins here out of Tulsa. Linebacker is the fifth most need here, but even though Jeremiah Lewis-Cormiller is ranked ahead of him, I think they're probably going to take Zaven Collins. Pretty interchangeable, two really good players there. Next up, we have the Bills, and I think this is where Najee Harris is going to go. Out of Alabama, they do need a running back. Devin Singletary is bad. So I think bringing Najee Harris there, very, very good power back for the Bills, will help them a lot. Now, the second last pick, coming at number 32, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think this is where Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is going to go. They need a linebacker, it's their third biggest need. I think this is too early to take an offensive tackle here, and I don't think it's worth to take a wide receiver, so they're going to take Koramoah, and I think this can be a really, really good pick here for them at linebacker. Now with the last pick in draft, we have your Super Bowl champions, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think they are going to be going with Christian Barmore, the inside defensive lineman. That's their number one need, so I think they are going to take Barmore here, a very good D tackle for them out of Alabama. So yeah, there we go. That is our mock draft. As you can see, I think this is a pretty good one here. This is a very, very stacked draft, especially with quarterbacks. But Mac Jones, as I said, I don't like him. I think this is high for him. He should probably go maybe in like the second half of the first round at least, 15 to 32 range. But he is going to go high. I think he will be a top 10 pick, as a lot of scouts do like him. But yeah, that is my mock draft. I will be doing my final mock draft in a couple of weeks from now, so there'll probably be some big changes with some more players having their pro days. But I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to leave a like as well as subscribe and comment down below what you think of this mock draft. But that is it. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.